name's Jessie Blanchard, and I am one of the librarians here at Rockland Library. Today, along with my colleague Patty King, we are going to be doing a very abbreviated version, online version of our Rockland Library historical tour. We're going to start in what we now call the quiet room or the crane room. This room was the office of the original librarian for Rockland Library, Ms. Nancy Burbank. Say hi, Nancy. She's not socially distant. The original Rockland Library was not in this building. It was started in 1895, and if you're familiar with where the Grasshopper Shop is, it's in a block called the Spofford Block that originally had a second story, and that second story was the Rockland Library, where she was first employed. At that time, that was there from 1895 to 1903, and at that time they have records of books actually being destroyed because of contagious diseases. Don't worry, we haven't hit that yet. Our books are still safe. When the trustees of the library learned that Andrew Carnegie was giving away money to build libraries, they jumped on that. And they applied for the grant, and they received $20,000 to build a brand new building. The stipulation was that the city had to come up with the land, and they had to agree to maintain the building forevermore. So they did that, and they built this building. It was completed in 1904, and this room that we now use as a quiet room was Nancy's office. Nancy had some interesting features in her office. One that you can't see was a bookcase that she had along the wall that was made from the shutters of Henry Knox's mansion in Montpelier, which is kind of neat. I wonder where those ever went off to. One of the other things is that she had a dumbwaiter. Currently, we don't use it for anything because it ends up in the Historical Society, but below us was a storage area, and it was used to bring books up and down and into her office. And now, Patty, let's take a walk and we'll show you the safe. So here is the fireproof safe that was a part of the original library. Many people who see this think that this building was a bank because of this, but this was never a bank, always a library. It's very heavy, very detailed, and it was it's fireproof. Sorry, there's no light in there. In order to keep very rare books and library records. We currently keep scrapbooks and other old things in there right now. And now we will turn it over to Patty, who is going to do the next part of the tour.
Hi, we are going to walk into the rotunda of the library, and we are going to talk about the library's opening day. The Rockland Public Library opened on April 26, 1904. There was quite a ceremony with the former mayor of Rockland, E.A. Butler, and J.E. Rhodes, the current mayor, and then the architect of the library, George Clough, was there. George Clough was a Boston architect, but he grew up in Blue Hill, Maine. And George handed the keys to W.T. Cobb, the president of the library trustees, and W.T. Cobb said, "A public library is essential to the educational development of the community. Its establishment in any city or town is but the recognition of a desire for mental improvement, and whenever such an establishment has been accomplished, either by a municipality, individuals, or as in this case, by both, there has been made a wise and practical contribution to the cause of better homes and better citizenship." He said that 116 years years ago, but I still think that rings true today. And I love what the newspaper said, a sentence from the newspaper, one of the newspapers at that time, said, after these exercises, the library was thronged with sightseers, all of whom were delighted with its neatness and convenience. So we're going to take a look at its neatness and convenience. We're going to kind of take a look at the rotunda area. We will start with the floor. Let's start by looking at the floor. The floor of the library initially was intended to be wooden floors throughout, but because of great fundraisers that the Courier-Gazette held, there were many other features added to the library, such as this flooring, which is terrazzo flooring. Terrazzo is a composite material which is used for floor and wall treatments. It's made of marble, quartz, granite, glass, or other suitable chips, and it's poured into with a binder, and it makes it kind of cement-like. Terrazzo is cured and then ground and polished to a smooth surface or otherwise finished to produce a uniformly textured surface. And then you can see the wainscoting in the library, the wainscoting around the walls. The wainscoting in the library was also something that the fundraising accomplished. And this wainscoting is made out of Tennessee marble. Tennessee marble is a type of limestone found in East Tennessee. And this stone has been used in the construction of numerous buildings and monuments throughout the US and Canada. Some are the National Gallery of Art, the National Air and Space Museum as well. And Tennessee marble was so popular in the late 19th century that Knoxville, the stone's primary finishing and distribution center, became known as the Marble City. We are going to take a look at the screens and the grill work here that are on both sides of the library. Once again, this was something that was not included in the original plans of the library, but those were purchased through the generosity of the Honorable Sidney M. Bird for a cost of, wait for it, only $250, which is pretty amazing. And then let's move up and let's take a look at the ceiling. And let's take a look, if we can, kind of at the rosettes in the ceiling. So originally the contract was just for having things finished in natural plaster, but you can see that this is way more than natural plaster. The ceiling and the cornices were tinted in a shade of ivory by Rockland artist C.H. Cree. And the rosettes in the soffits are glazed. And when the library opened, the walls were not this creamy color you see. The library walls were all a deep green color, if you can imagine that. Another interesting fact is that when the library opened, obviously in 1904, we didn't have energy efficient lights. So the library was lit by incandescent gas using 73 well-spot burners. And the brackets were ornamental in the rotunda. And A. Ross Weeks put those in place for no profit at all. So once again, the library, it was a community effort putting the library together. I think we're going to move into the reading room.
And now we are in the reading room. The reading room looks a little bit different than what we are used to. There's a lot of things we could have talked to you about, but they're currently being hidden behind this wall. One of the reasons for the wall is because we have a big team of people restoring the granite that's on the outside of the building. If you do get a chance to come by when they're finished, it's going to be beautiful. Just to note that the gray granite originally came from Spruce Head, And the pink granite originally came from Jonesport, Maine. And out front of the library here are granite columns. They were polished on Vinyl Island for free for the library. One of the things we like about this room is the amount of art that we have. So the two guys I'm going to mention to you are these Caproni busts up here. On the left we have Abraham Lincoln, and on the right we have Longfellow. And Longfellow was the first gift of art to the library. Say hi, guys. And now Patty will tell you about the painting behind us.
So the painting you see here is of Samuel Pillsbury. He lived from 1811 to 1890. The painting is done in oil by an unknown artist, and it was donated to the Rockland Historical Society by the great-great-grandson of Samuel Pillsbury, and Doug Perry is his name. And what is really interesting about this portrait is that it is kind of like a full-size standing portrait, and you don't see many of those today. What I learned is many times people would have a portrait like this, but then they would cut the portrait off and only keep the top part of the portrait. Samuel Pillsbury was he was an important person in Rockland history. He operated a steam mill in the south end that sawed and planed lumber. He was described as being deficient in early education, but he was self-taught by reading the newspapers and about ancient history, and he was also a Bible scholar. He had no faith in men of learned professions. He had a child that died of overdoctoring. A minister also swindled him out of a large sum of money, and a lawyer bested him in a legal case. That's the story. And so Samuel Pillsbury wrote a poem about this. And he said, "The nest of college birds are three, law, physic, and divinity. And while these three remain combined, they keep the world oppressed and blind." Samuel Pillsbury built the Pillsbury Block, which is on the southwest corner of Main and School Streets. It used to house the department store Center Crane, and now the Island Institute is there. And we're going to move into the central area of the library now. Here we see a painting of General Henry Knox. This is a portrait of General Knox. Henry Knox was the Secretary of War in the Revolutionary War. He was a bookstore owner, and he was retired in Thomaston, Maine. He's known for bringing cannons to Fort Ticonderoga from Boston by ox, and this took 3 winter months. This painting is a copy of a painting. It was done by Alfred Bryant Copeland, who was primarily a landscape painter. The original painting was done by Gilbert Stuart. Gilbert Stuart was one of America's foremost portraitists who produced over 1,000 portraits. He is best known for the unfinished work of Washington. This was given by Mrs. Henry Reuter in memory of her father, W.H. Glover. And now we're going to move on to the Forest Eagle painting.
So this is a painting of the ship Forest Eagle by Captain Fred A. Hosmer. It was one of the many ships built in Rockland. It was built in 1856. In 1861, under the command of Thomas Pillsbury, it had transported 500 Chinese contract laborers from Shanghai to Havana, Cuba. And it was shortly after this voyage that President Lincoln forbade American ships from participating in the coolie trade, which was essentially slave labor. Now we'll move on to another ship built in Rockland.
So we are looking at a print of the clipper ship, the Red Jacket. The Red Jacket was built in Rockland in 1853. It was the largest vessel built in Maine to that point. The Red Jacket is famous for her fast 13 14-day, 1-hour maiden voyage from New York to Liverpool. And it also is said that on one 24-hour stretch, she made 417 nautical miles, which is pretty impressive. This at that time was the fastest transatlantic crossing. And we are going to move on to Jessie.
Over here we have a rubbing from the plaque that sits on Mount Batty in Camden. It's part of a poem by Edna St. Vincent Millay, which I will read to you part of. It says, "All I could see from where I stood were 3 long mountains and a wood. I turned and looked another way and saw 3 islands in a bay. So with my eyes I traced the line of the horizon, thin and fine, straight around till I was come back to where I'd started from. And all I saw from where I stood was 3 long mountains and a wood." Edna St. Vincent Millay was born in 1892 in a house on 198 to 200 Broadway, which is just up the road from us. She was the first female winner of Pulitzer Prize for Poetry, and that rubbing is from her plaque on Mount Batty.
And we're going to close things out here in the entryway of a new portion of the library. The library outgrew its space, and thanks to the help of a newly formed friends group and many other people, the library raised $3 million for its 2001 expansion. The architect was Stephen Smith from Camden. We're pleased that this beautiful section was added onto the library, and we're pleased that the library continues to grow and improve and change and try to keep up with what's going on in the world, to stay relevant and necessary, and to stay a community center. And I think, Jessie, that is it. Do you have something to add?
It's just that we miss you all very much. Rest assured that even though we are here, we are staying far away from each other, and the library is very clean, and we can't wait to open this beautiful space for you again.
Thank you, everybody. See you. Bye.